Okay, I would like to call this August 29th, 2023 meeting of the Ethics Commission to order at 6:01 p.m.
Can we roll call, please?
And I am recording, just so everyone knows. Okay, Chair Hester,
Present.
Commissioner Skaggs,
Present.
Commissioner Lubinecki,
Present.
Commissioner Bardwell,
Vice
Vice Chair,
Bardwell,
I'm sorry, Vice Chair Bardwell.
Present.
Commissioner Drake.
Present.
Okay, and that's all the commissioners.
Okay, we have a quorum. On our draft agenda here, it was sent around to all the commissioners. Is there a motion to either modify it or eventually approve it by any of the commissioners?
I make a motion, we approve the agenda as presented.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. First item of action is the approval of the August 29, 2023. Let's take that back, of the June 20th, 2023 minutes. And then we're gonna, after that, we'll go on to the July 31 minutes. But let's start with the June 20 minutes. Are there any requests for edits, modifications, additions, subtractions? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank
I'm on
you.
mute.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the June 2023 minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Now we're moving on to the July 31, 2023 minutes, virtual meeting by Zoom. Are there any requests for any modifications, edits, deletions, additions, whatever you'd like? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve as they stand?
Motion to approve.
So
Is there a second?
Second.
second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 The next item is the primary reason for this particular Zoom meeting. That's a discussion of guidance for the mayor who requested guidance in an August 10, 2023 letter to the Ethics Commission. And I guess my first question here is to our council, and that has to do with whether or not we should have this particular item undertaken in executive session. The reason being, let me just pull this up here. Under the open meetings law for the state of Maryland, there are a number of different opportunities or reasons for holding a meeting in executive session. Three of them might have something to do with discussion of this particular letter. The first one is personnel matters. The second one is asking for legal advice from our counsel. And the third one is pending potential litigation. Not that I'm expecting it, but who knows? I mean, there's a potential, I think, if things go to an extreme. So those are the three items that I was looking at. I don't know if there are any others that council can advise, or whether or not the commission itself wishes to go into executive session based on these particular criteria for closed executive session. Is there perhaps any comment from our counsel, Mr. Whitley?
Good evening, everyone. Mr. Chairman, you actually took the words out of my mouth. I believe that it could apply, all three of the sections that you mentioned could apply, but definitely section 2, or the second and third. So it would definitely be my recommendation that we go into a closed session or executive session, and that way board members would have the ability to speak freely as well.
But just for this one item on the agenda, we would come back and then go into a general public hearing and adjournment afterwards. And that would be open, but just for this one item of discussion. Do any of the commissioners have any thoughts?
I have just a question, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Looking at the item, in general, part of what I would have hoped would be to hear from the individuals who are the subject of the discussion. And if we're in executive session, that won't be possible. Is that correct, Mr. Whitley?
Are they on the call?
Mr. DeWalt is on the call. Councilman DeWalt is on the call. Is Councilman Mitchell on the call here?
No, he's not.
We can hear from Councilman DeWalt, and then we can adjourn into executive session.
Sounds like a good compromise. I mean, nothing's been decided.
No, I understand. But if we went into executive,
Part of the reason for going into executive session is just to have a free and open discussion where no one's reputation is being questioned publicly. And it's only after, we would decide, either to end things just as they are or to start the next step. And starting the next step, that's where it becomes critical for the people who are under discussion become directly involved in the meeting. But at this point, it's just very preliminary. And under our rules of procedure number 10 in particular, has to do with, hang on, let me just see if I can find that real handy. Got so many papers here. I apologize, it takes me half a minute. Number 10 has to do with these kinds of discussions and preliminary discussions. I'm sorry, it's not showing up here handy. Again, I apologize for taking a few extra minutes. I do know it's Rules of Procedure, Section 10.
And I believe that since Councilmember DeWalt was not the primary participant or the primary person with reference to what happened during the eviction, I feel a lot more comfortable just hearing from him as to what he has to say, and then discussing everything in full. And like I said, if there's a next step, both parties would have more of an opportunity to express themselves more clearly in a public forum.
Sure. No, I just found the proper language here. City of Laurel Ethics Commission Rules of Procedure adopted February 5th, 2013. Section 10A has to do with when do we go into executive session and how do we do it. 10A sub 4, all complaint proceedings shall be held in executive session unless the subject of the complaint requests in writing that the proceeding be held in open session. This is to protect the reputation and subject of the complaint until such time as the Ethics Commission determines that sufficient cause to proceed is or is not established. So as I said, it's just a very preliminary sort of a thing that we're talking about here. This is not an actual hearing. This is just whether or not we feel that there is cause to take the next step, which then becomes open and more public. And again, this is just, we get sometimes, somebody can come out of the blue and say that Chairman Hester did something wrong. And if I didn't do anything wrong, then it gets dragged through the public if all of it becomes even open and public kind of discussion. And so prior to the Ethics Commission deciding that there could be some reason to proceed, is to protect, in this case, Chairman Hester or whoever is being accused of something. It's just to avoid frivolous weaponization of the process of the Ethics Commission. So that's the whole point behind it. But I think our counselor idea or proposal to have Councilmember DeWalt speak to us in advance of our going into executive session, and then go into an executive session and then come back out again is the best procedure.
And I just want to say, this is not a complaint. or
Right.
or an opinion letter or an opinion. So again, this is very preliminary. So if it was an official complaint or a request for a opinion, it would be handled differently.
Sure. Well, I mean, it's also something that could become a complaint, including, but not limited to, the commission acting sui sponte. And the commission does have the authority to act sui sponte. That means basically that we can be the complainant if we feel there is enough reason, enough cause, even if there's not a third party complainant. And so we could, in theory, become a sui sponte complainant, but we haven't even gone that far. So it's just very preliminary. And we don't want anyone's reputation to be affected in any way at this extremely preliminary step that we're at right now. Okay. All right. Well, with that, I'm sorry. Anybody else would like to speak? Okay. That's the Councilmember DeWalt. Are you active right now? Are you online active in the Zoom call? Councilmember DeWalt, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Great, great. Did you hear the discussion so far?
Yes, I have, but I just came as a person that saw it when I was going through the computer today, and I had no idea that I would be here speaking this evening
Okay,
on
well,
any matter.
you don't need to if you prefer not to. We're not at a stage where there's any requirement for you to say anything, but if you would like to provide any perspective, we would welcome hearing it. If not, then we will just proceed with our motion to enter executive session for this one particular item on our agenda.
Can you ask him for a minute?
Could you give me a minute, please?
Sure, of course, of course. Take your time. While you're thinking that through, perhaps if perhaps we could have an update from staff on the status of people filing their financial disclosure statements and paying their fines from last year. From this, are we completely up to speed now? Has everybody submitted theirs and paid whatever fines that are owed from the 2022 financial disclosure statements?
I think, hold on just a moment. I
Sure.
believe all of the ones who are going to be submitting them and paying them have. There are several who have said they would not pay it, and they've complained to the mayor about it, and I'm not exactly sure where that stands. There's two people in particular. One, I think he's resigned from his committee.
Mhm.
The other, I don't believe has. So
Well,
I
if
can-
sometime in the next few days, if you could go over that and then
Yeah.
send a memorandum to all of the ethics commissioners. And it sounds like we're probably going to need to have a Zoom meeting with that as the primary topic
Okay.
as to what action do we want to take. And we'll see, because there are some actions we can take and there are some actions we can ask the mayor to take. Regarding someone who is refusing to pay or submit, or someone who is not willing to pay or submit from 2022 when they were active. So if you could just let us know those things, and we can then have a discussion and decide how we want to proceed on that and what actions, if any, we would like to take.
Okay, I'll get all the updates to everyone tomorrow.
Great, great. And in one of our minutes here, one of the items that we had talked about was updating the website with where the listing of the actual ethics ordinances is available at the click of a button. There's a hot link for it. And we're asking for the city's IT people to incorporate the changes to the ethics ordinance that were required by the state and that the county or the city council and mayor had approved, and just wondering what the status was. Has the city IT office been able to incorporate those edits, and now do we have a fully integrated, updated and new ethics ordinance available by hot link on our website, on the city website?
I believe Ms. Green had spoken to that previously, and it's actually, she had submitted everything to Municode, and they're the ones who actually integrate everything. I have not double checked. I believe it was supposed to be up by the 1st of July. Hold on a minute, let me check and see.
Mr. Chairman, I think, at least I believe the fine had increased. Is that not correct, to $5?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, and the reason I asked that is that I happened to download our section of the ethics code today because I wanted to review what the options were here. And it still said the $2 per day to a maximum of $250.
So as of today, it's not updated.
Right.
Okay.
All right, well, perhaps we could ask Laura to get with Ms. Green and see if there's any way to expedite this so that we can have the latest and newest version of the ethics ordinance online as soon as possible. Realizing this takes time and there's a lot of work and a lot of people want to have updates. So, and we're just one of many, I'm sure. But if there's anything that we can do to encourage this be done sooner rather than later, I think it's very important to have the city ethics ordinance fully updated and available to everybody.
We can put the approved ordinance online until the code is modified and codified for everything, so that's not an issue.
Okay, that's great. That's great. And when you put it in there, could you please make sure that when you print it out, it prints out in the proper format? Because I tried to print it out a few weeks ago, and it just maybe it's just my old antique computer that belongs in the Smithsonian, but it was having a bit of a problem printing out the proper format. So I'm sure I'm not the only one in the city of Laurel that has an old antique computer, and just make sure that everybody in the city is able to print out if they ever want a copy, and it comes out in the proper formatting when they send it to their printer.
Would there be some virtue in possibly having a PDF version of the applicable parts?
I think that'd be great, just to have a PDF document as an alternate, in addition to the Municode version that's up there.
Right, because then you don't have to be assured that its online version is working properly.
Right.
Yeah.
That way every citizen, no matter how advanced or less advanced they may be on their computers, can easily have a properly formatted version. Excellent suggestion. Thank you. Mr. DeWalt, would you like some more time, or?
No, I'm fine.
Okay, would you like to?
How can I help you?
Well, is there anything you might like to tell us about your experience regarding the events surrounding this particular situation?
What situation is that? I have no idea what you're talking about, so you're going to have to explain to me what exactly, is the allegations. I guess it's from the mayor. All I heard was it was August 10th that the mayor sent you a letter, I guess, complaining about the way I do my the way I'm a council member.
Well, it has to do with an event that occurred on August 1st, 2023.
Mr. Chairman,
715 Main Street. Yes.
can you ask Mr. DeWalt whether he's alone or whether there's someone in the room with him?
All right. Could you please respond to that, Mr. DeWalt?
The only one here is my cat.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
It has to do with an event that occurred on August 1st, 2023. It had to do with an eviction on Main Street. And according to this letter, there was a different council member who was the one who apparently was the one under, doing things that were being questioned, but it was also said that you happened to be there as well. And I had no idea whether you were there, if so, whether you were simply an observer or taking an active role. I mean, we have no idea. If you'd like to say anything, fine. At this point, fine. If not, that's fine
Uh,
too.
Yes, I was there, and I was informed by a constituent, and then Council Member Mitchell, that this constituent was about to be evicted from her home.
Mhm.
So I responded there because it's only right down the street.
Sure. Okay.
And when I got there, there was about 15 people that I guess it was the landlord had brought in. The landlord wasn't present, but a representative of the landlord was there. And they were gonna, and I figured I would be a good, possibly maybe a mediator and try to resolve the situation or find out exactly what I, got into or whatever that, as far as my being a council member when a person has called requesting that I come there just to see what exactly, maybe help them out, maybe help the landlord out, see what's going on there. And my first obligation was to go to speak to constituent who lived in apartment number 4. There were 5 apartments in 715 Main Street, and I went straight to her apartment. And there's a lady there and a young man who is autistic that lives there with her. They're no relation, but they both live in that same apartment, which is apartment number 4. And from what I understand is that the first thing I asked, which usually is the common occurrence of someone getting evicted, was, are you up on your rent? And the young man, who, although being autistic, was very sharp as far as their finances go, and he said, yes, we are totally up to date on our payments. And I said, well, why are they trying to evict you? And they said, because they're blaming us on the entire building of 5 apartments as being the cause of it being cockroach infested. So after gathering that information, I walked outside and I talked to the young lady who was, I guess, in charge of, she's a representative of the landlord and all these 15 people that were gathered. And I got her side of the story. And I had one lady with her that said that they have sent them numerous letters and things about trying to get rid of this cockroach problem. And they weren't cooperating. And it's been going on for a long time since they've lived there. And I was just trying to gather as much information as I could from her, as that, can they give them some time? Can we try to work this out so that this lady's, all her property's not put on the street in that morning? And they didn't want to budge with anything because they had said that they gave her enough notice for it. And they had a whole bunch of papers with them and stuff. And I was trying to gather as much papers as I could from them, or at least have them send them to me so that I could form a better opinion on it, other than having all her furniture and everything in that household of him and her put out on the street that morning. And I did get to see the eviction notice and a few other pieces of paper and things like that. But I wanted to get a lot more information before possibly maybe trying to negotiate with them, and maybe we could extend it for a couple weeks or something like that, so that somebody could at least look at all this and make sure this is valid, because most of the time it is. I would imagine 99% of eviction is the person is not paying their rent, and these two were up to date on their rent. And at that point in time, two deputy sheriffs showed up. I knew one of them from my prior days, and I asked him what was going on in the situation, and he described to me that the writ that was written against them was done way back during the pandemic, and it just came up, and they said a judge must have just had a whole stack of them and just started signing off on them. And we discovered that the writ it was the last date on it that the judge signed was May, I'm going to say the 18th, maybe something like that, or the 8th, which means on that date, you have to serve that within 60 days. And on that date, it was null and void. So it was not a good writ. So therefore, they could not do the eviction on her because the writ wasn't proper. And they had to go back to the court, including the two people that live there, go back to court and file for another writ because the writ that the judge had signed was expired. And I said, absolutely great. Now we could get some valuable information, which I did. I petitioned the city as far as the records that they have on this house. And I've done a lot of research on cockroaches. And when I was there, I even asked the people, which I never thought I'd ever see again in my life, when in my last 2 years of college, when my room, my high rise that I lived in was cockroach infested, and I still never got used to that. And it never got eradicated. And I never thought I'd see another cockroach in my life. And they were there. There were big ones alive. There was big ones dead. There was little ones alive, and there was little ones dead. And it was infested. And in the next couple days, I went to the neighbor across the hall, which is, I believe, number 3. And her name's Rosetta or Rosanna. And she had lived there for almost 12 years. And she told me, yes, they have cockroaches, but her husband has rented, or he has hired an exterminator to come and exterminate their apartment periodically. And then the guy downstairs, I got a hold of him, and he told me he has cockroaches downstairs. So I'm assuming, I have never spoke to the nut people in number 2 and number 5. I've never spoke to them. I've tried numerous times to get a hold of them, left my card and everything. But I'm assuming this building, which is in the historic district, is that they all have cockroaches. If one of them has it, they all have it. And how could they just single out one person with this? And what I did was, I got the records from City Hall, and I looked at how many times they've been out there and how they were managing, and based on my knowledge of the information I gained with exterminators, how they were handling this particular situation, since it was the main reason they were being evicted. But I've gathered a lot of information from it. They also, what kind of disturbs me a lot is, I asked the lady when we were there, she had a sign up in front of the house by the company that rents to these people that they had 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments for rent. And I asked the lady, I said, when somebody calls on that number, are you going to tell them? before they move into this house is that it's infested by cockroaches. And she turned around and walked away from me. And until that problem is resolved, how can we allow her to advertise those apartments in that same complex where it's infested with cockroaches until that cockroach problem is taken care of? And I don't know how we can allow that, and how our code enforcement wouldn't go up there and stop them from putting a sign up on that building until those cockroaches are gone. And to this day, the two people went to district court, and apparently the landlord has gone to district court, and they've both gotten continuances on this issue. So it's still being negotiated and legally between the two parties about what's going to happen in that apartment complex. And I have a lot of other suggestions that I could recommend, but you know, I'm not prepared. I don't have my notes with me. I have a whole big folder of the research I've done and things like that, but I'm not prepared without having that, you know, to talk to you guys. And I think I've probably talked enough anyway.
Mr. Chairman, may I speak, please? Hi, Kristen Pulley for the record, City Administrator. I just wanted to go on record and state that the City of Laurel has not, code enforcement, nor my office, nor the mayor's office has received any complaints for other units with being infested with cockroaches. I just wanted to go on the record and state that. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a comment on that? I'm a City of Laurel council member. My main responsibilities in my job is to help people. I went to 3 out of the 5 apartments. I saw cockroaches. I know they have cockroaches. They wouldn't lie about it, plus I saw them. Why, if I am on the scene of a apartment complex that's infested with cockroaches, why can't I be the complaining party as being a council member for the City of Laurel? So I don't understand what Miss Pulley wants, that she keeps saying this, that the people don't call the city hall and complain. Maybe it's because they don't have trust in what the city does, because you know the trust with government is very low right now. But you would think, after I explained to Miss Pulley that I actually saw the cockroaches and I saw the infestation, and interviewed 3 out of the 5 people, you think that would be enough for the city to come in there with their code enforcement and take action. That's the way I feel my job responsibility and my elective office holds. And I can't understand that they just want people to call and complain before they act on the situation. I think my word speaks for itself, and they should have acted when I reported it.
Chairman, you're muted.
Would anyone else like to make any comments at this time?
I have a question for Councilmember DeWalt. Did you receive a call from the tenant, or did you receive a call from Councilmember Mitchell?
Mr. DeWalt, you're muted.
I believe at the time it was both individuals. Catherine is I guess the head of the household, because her partner there is autistic, and I know her by having her phone numbers in and she just called me recently, not too long ago, when she felt that that she was going to get evicted again, but a judge apparently overruled the conviction again in court. So they do have some more time on their hand. And I was thinking of trying to get the situation resolved from the city side, but I'm not getting any cooperation with the city, because they said nobody has called the city. And that's Ms. Polly's interpretation of it.
And Mr. DeWalt, in your research, do you have any proof that the tenant at issue being evicted had ever contacted the city? Do you have an email or any type of documentation showing that she contacted the city about?
I don't know if they've contacted the city or not,
Okay.
but they have contacted the landlord many, many times. And the landlord knew, and I have records from all the way back to, I believe it's January of 20. I requested the five years back, all the records of anything has to do with that apartment. And the city gave me all the way back to January of 2021. And they were at that house numerous times, but every time they went out there, it was a company from Baltimore, same as this company. They're from Baltimore. Their headquarters are in Baltimore. It was an exterminating from Baltimore, and they would come out and they would do one apartment and then they would leave. And they were charging $30 on these reports. And I thought that was kind of weird that it was only $30. And when I've talked to 3 different exterminators now, the bare minimum of doing one of those rooms, one of those apartments, would usually be around $150. And then you would have to do them all at the same time, or the cockroaches are just going to move to the other apartment. So I honestly feel, and as soon as they filed charges in court, all the exterminating and everything came to an abrupt end, because they got that ruling that the judge actually, because when they went to court, I guess they had attorneys and everything like that. Miss Catherine and her partner did not have an attorney. They went by themselves. And so they got a ruling from a judge that said that, in fact, because of I guess, the testimony of the landlord and the exterminator or whoever was there, that they were the cause of those cockroaches in that whole, in five of those five apartments that are in that household.
Thank you, sir.
But if you need, I told Miss Pulley, if you want me to, what do you want me to do? Have them just call every day and just bog everything down? Why don't you send code enforcement there, and why don't you have them inspect it? Plus their inspection, I took a picture of it. The code enforcement inspection was dead after July 31st, and I still don't think they've been in there to inspect that building. Don't you think, as Mr. Whitley, this is just mind-boggling to me, because here I am, I'm contacting code enforcement. They know, and I tell them that it's an infestation of cockroaches and stuff. Why don't they at least go out there, and why don't they see for themselves or do an inspection? Then their inspection thing is already up, so that why don't they go, and while they're doing their regular inspection, why don't they inspect for cockroaches based on what I tell them?
Okay, are there any other comments? Thank you very much, Councilmember DeWalt. That was very helpful to hear your perspective, and someone who's been out there and looked at things. Thank you.
And I have plenty of notes and things like that. I just wasn't prepared tonight.
Sure, no, I get it. As I say, we're not, there's no hearing tonight. This is not something, we're not moving forward at this moment. This is a very preliminary kind of a discussion. And I think some of the issues at stake are a little different from the ones that you've outlined. But it's very good to hear your perspective, and thank you very much for coming onto the Zoom and giving us this background. It's helpful. Excuse me. Any other discussion? All right, so I guess the question is, should we move into executive session at this time? That would include the staff for the commission plus each of the commissioners, but not include people who are not commissioners or staff. I think Sarah Green can be considered to be staff given her position in the city. there anybody else? All right, would anybody like to make a motion to move into executive session at this time?
A motion to move in executive session.
Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, well, based on the points that I mentioned, personnel matters, legal advice, and potential litigation, and particularly the second two, which have been confirmed by our counsel, I declare that we are now in executive session. Could our staff make sure that whomever is not either a commissioner or on our staff is not able to participate in this time in the Zoom? I don't know how this technical part works, but
Actually, it looks like the only people on the meeting now are commission members and staff.
Well,
okay.
yeah, we
But-
were gonna go into a Teams meeting and then come back to the Zoom, but since people have left the meeting, if you do not want to stay on the meeting, we could just do it here. It's totally your call. I mean, I don't know how you guys want to proceed.
Well, I don't know this is necessarily going to take very long. It might, I don't know. I don't want to shut anybody down. I want to have everybody to talk as much as they want to.
Right.
But I don't imagine this is going to go more than 10 minutes or 15 minutes, something like that. But I mean, I'm not, as I say, going to stop anybody from talking. All right, well,
If it's a secure line, I don't necessarily think we have to go to the Teams and come back. But that's just my recommendation, as long as the line is secure. And my only other question is, I know other boards that I've served, they don't record their executive sessions. I don't know if we've actually had one since I've been on the.
we don't
chair.
record the executive sessions. Usually
Okay.
the staff take notes and that's it.
Okay.
Because we're still recording.
Okay.
Okay, so I will stop the recording.
All right, make an announcement that we're going into executive session, and we will start recording again when we come out of executive session.
Okay, we are going to, it is 6:44 and we are,
And then I guess we,
And start recording again.
I do not see anyone in the waiting room.
Okay, if you can make an announcement that we have now come out of executive session and we are now in open meeting with recording.
Okay, at 7:20, we have come out of the executive session and we are now in open session again.
All right. So just to briefly summarize, we had a discussion in executive session regarding letters that we had received from the mayor and from a landlord outlining an event that happened on what was the date again? On August 1st, 2023, having to do with an argument between a landlord and a tenant who was being evicted, and some actions and statements that were made by a certain council member, Mr. Martin Mitchell, Councilmember Martin Mitchell. No decisions were made in executive session, which is not the purpose of executive session, so we did not make any decisions. So now that we are out of executive session, we will continue with the more action-oriented part of where we were beginning to discuss. So are there any motions for any actions that the Ethics Commission should be taking at this time?
I will make a motion that Mr. Whitley draft or write a letter, or do you draft it, Mr. Whitley?
Draft.
I would draft a letter that would be
For our
sent
approval.
for our approval, asking for Mr. Mitchell's perspective on the actions that have been outlined in the letter and the memo, with expressing somewhat our concerns of what they potentially represent.
And potentially what appeared to be perhaps could be taken as threats, and how this is unbecoming of a council member of the city of Laurel.
And could be possibly ethics violations.
And could possibly be ethics violations as is outlined in the Laurel Ethics Ordinance. particularly if you can just mention those two sections that we asked about.
Those were actually the two I had tagged when I read through the ordinance.
2-55E, use of prestige of office, and 2-55J, abuse J1, abusive position.
I may also mention J2, Mr. Chairman,
Okay,
because
sounds
they
good.
are up for their housing permit. Their rental permit is up for renewal according to Councilmember DeWalt. So,
Right. Okay. Good point. Please include 2 as well, J2. Anyone want to add anything more in this request to our good council? Hearing none, is there a second to the motion? Anyone want to second the motion?
I second.
Okay.
I second.
Okay, thank you. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Thank you. It's unanimous. So once this is drafted, if it could be provided to the full commission for our review, any possible editing, and then requesting staff to send it to Councilmember Mitchell.
Mr. Chairman, can I have a week to get it done?
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Right, and may I make a suggestion too, Mr. Whitley, that perhaps in that letter would be a deadline for response?
Definitely.
Excellent. In advance of the election.
Response with 15 days to response. Is that sufficient?
Yeah, that's 2 weeks, so sure.
Right. And legally, that's an appropriate amount of time for this sort of thing. Okay. Just want to be on very solid ground. Okay. Looks like we're done with that particular part of the agenda. Next item is agenda item number 6, general public hearing. If there are any members of the general public present, please make yourself known. And if you want to ask us anything, seeing none, hearing none, we'll move on to item number 7. Well, actually, just insert one thing here. Is there any business anyone would like to bring up? Any commissioners would like to bring up? Do any commissioners have any additional business to bring up at this time? Is there anything that staff would like to?
I had something.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Yes.
Yes,
Commissioner Drake.
this Commissioner Drake, yes. As I was going through the financial disclosure statements for the various candidates as part of their election packet, it became clear to me that we need to do some refinement, shall I say, of the packet, because there were a lot of the same mistakes made over and over. And when I went back and actually read the actual wording and the statements, I could see where it could be not clear, or it could be confusing.
Right.
So I spoke with staff at one point about checking to see if the state, when they did the model ethics commission, did they also do a model form or financial disclosure form, or do they have one that we could maybe look at? Or
Sounds like-
if that's something that the commission would want to look at all.
Well, I know at one of our last 2 meetings, I forget which one, and it's in the minutes, we had mentioned that we would like all the commissioners to take another look at the guidance and instructions for both of the kind of financial disclosure forms, and for any kind of amendments and improvements and such. And this builds on that decision that we kind of agreed to try and have our various commissioners come up with anything that they may like to have to modify by our September meeting. But I think your idea to ask the state of Maryland to take a look at theirs and see maybe either incorporate items from theirs into ours or use theirs as the template in place of ours with maybe some modifications for the city of Laurel situation is a very good one.
I have,
And that was,
oh, I'll wait till you finish. I thought you were done.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, it's a piggyback off the financial disclosure. I'll wait till you finish.
No, go on.
Okay, I just wanted to, at some point in this, the open session, staff mentioned that there were some issues regarding individuals refusing to pay the I guess the late fees for not filing. So what do we do in those instances? What's our recourse?
Well, I think one thing that we can do, and again, I'll look to council for advice. One thing that we can do is we can advise the mayor of these two circumstances. We do not have the authority to take someone off of a commission or a board, or whoever the person is who's refusing, just being outright, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to pay you. At the same time, though, if you owe money to the city of Laurel, and then these people have been assessed these fines, if you owe money to the city of Laurel, I think it's up to the mayor to tell these people they need to number one, immediately. I mean, they should have told them already, but to abstain from any activity or actions or any decisions or any kind of activity on their board or commission or whatever their organizational unit actually is. And if they're just refusing, then to ask the mayor to ask for their resignation. Because how can someone be in violation of the ethics ordinance and do it in a brazen kind of a way and just continue on being in violation?
I think isn't one of the individuals someone who had resigned from their position, so they're no longer serving. So that
takes that threat away, but it doesn't take away the requirement to pay.
Yeah, but I thought it was more than one.
There are two people. One of them has resigned. One of them is continuing on.
Right.
So the one who's continuing on, we would need to ask the mayor. Perhaps we might ask our staff to bring this up with the mayor and say our discussion is, this really cannot move, or this cannot continue on, because if it does, I think we then need to start taking our own actions to hold a hearing. And we do have a certain number of remedies. They're not very powerful ones, but there are some remedies that we can move. And so I think it's just tell the mayor that absent decisions or actions, especially with the one who's continuing on, that we need to use our sui sponte authority to initiate an ethics hearing regarding at least the person who's staying. If someone's already left, there's not much you can do. But there's the record, that this person owes the city, these monies, and that's a permanent record. But how you go about collecting that, I'm not sure how.
Mr. Chairman, I think I asked you this question and we were just having a phone conversation, and you had indicated, and it seems to me the logical remedy for the person who is no longer serving is they cannot be appointed to another city position until the fine is remedied.
Right. Well, that's one thing.
That's about the only thing we can do if somebody is no longer serving.
Well, I mean, there's that, but there are also some people who are actual city employees, who are required to submit financial disclosure statements. Very few, but there are some. There are things that can be done, but as I mentioned, they're limited. I'm sorry, Counselor, would you like to add something now?
I lost my train of thought, so I'm having a junior senior moment.
Okay, so I mean, perhaps we might ask our staff, in particular, Ms. Pulley, to go and have a sit down with the mayor and say, this is our situation. Is there something you can do immediately, or do we need to start the process of holding a hearing, a formal hearing?
I'll follow up with the mayor, not a problem.
Excellent.
And this may be a situation where we can actually ask the court for a cease and desist order or an injunction for having them sit on their board if they refuse to pay.
Right. So Administrator Pulley, if you could kind of pull that up in the discussion with the mayor as well. I mean, I really want people to do this because they want to. I want people to comply because they want to. This sort of, having to pull the stick out. It's not my first choice, but I think it's a mistake not to use that authority if someone is just doing something egregious and simply saying, I'm not going to pay. That's awfully egregious. Because otherwise, there's no expectation that anyone would ever want to or need to comply with the ethics ordinance. All right. Anything more at this point from any of the commissioners or any of the staff? Hearing none, seeing none, move to item number 7, the adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I
I
move we
motion to
adjourn.
adjourn.
I second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're unanimous.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone, for participating. I appreciate it.
Good
And
night.
we'll look forward to hearing from Administrator Pulley and Councilor Whitley in the coming days.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night, everybody.
Good night.
Aye.
Good night.
Aye.
Good night.
Bye, everyone.
Good night.
Christian Pulley.
Hi.
Hi there. Is Kelly Lucas good to go or not?
I have not, I should have asked her tonight, but I have not gotten the approval on that. I faxed or I emailed the last correction that she did to Commissioner Drake. I'll email her first thing, or I'll email her now and ask if that is acceptable. And if not, we'll just have to ask her to fill out the form again. So she came in after talking to Mr. Hester and she put her address in, but it's down the side of the page. It's not in the actual correct area. And I scanned a copy and I sent it to Commissioner Drake, and I haven't heard from her yet on it.